Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new church. Before I start telling you where we are, I'm just going to introduce you briefly to this organ. Now, at first glance, you're going to just think, well, it looks like a normal 3-manual organ. There are some stops on the left-hand side, sort of 50-something stops. You think, well, that's nothing special, is it? Well, there's one stop that belongs to this organ that isn't actually over there. Let me show you something. The missing stop is, of course, the acoustic of the church itself, the building we are in. This is one of the largest acoustics I've actually ever come across in my organ playing life so far. I think there's sort of about 8 or 9 seconds of reverberation once you've stopped playing here. It's rather amazing. Now, where are we? Where is this amazing place? Well, we're in the German city of Wiesbaden, which is the state capital of Hessen, or Hessia, I think it's actually called in English, isn't it? We're sort of in the middle, in the west of Germany, if you like. We're near Frankfurt, if that means anything to you. Okay. And this is the largest, or the main, Catholic church here in Wiesbaden. And tonight, we're going to have a look at this wonderful instrument. Now, my new friend, Gabriel Dessauer, he's the organist here. He has very kindly given us the keys to the organ and to the church, and he's just said, have some fun. It's yours. Do what you want. So, yep, that's exactly what we're going to do. And there are some rather interesting features of this organ that we're going to look at. And then, because of this wonderful acoustic, I'm going to make up a piece of music based around the acoustic. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think it does. So, let's get on with it. Welcome to Wiesbaden. Before I start making some noise at the organ, I would quite like to show you something I've wanted to show you for quite a while. And that's the mechanics of this organ. Now, most of the organs we visited up to now have been either sort of with electrical connections between the keys and the pipes, or electro-pneumatic connections. And this one, thankfully, has a mechanical connection. That means when I press a key here, some mechanical things move, and underneath the pipes, and something is moved, literally mechanically, directly connected to this key here, and lets the air into the pipe. And it's here, it's rather easy to see here in this church, and if you come with me, I can show you exactly what that looks like. Now, here are 3 manuals, okay? And of course the 4th division being the pedals, so we're going to try and find 3 different divisions of mechanical bits. Let's see what we can find. So here in behind the console, there's a sort of a rather cute little trap door. And if I get down on one knee and open this trap door, Gabriel, the organist, showed me all of this before he left for the evening and said, yeah, you can have a look in here if you want. There you have the mechanics. Now those are wooden connections. It's very thin but very stable wood. It's red wood, and those connections from the console to the pipes are controlled through these chaps here. It's unbelievable, really. And they're sort of displayed in a rather nice order, rather nice pattern, if you like. The 2 diagonals. Come a bit closer, and you can maybe have a look here. We have one diagonal section of connections in this area, and that's the swell division of the organ. So if you follow the line from the console and the line that they're taking, they are over there on the right hand side of the organ. And then down underneath there you can see another diagonal collection of connections. Collection of connections, that's quite difficult to say. And that's heading off underneath me to the left side of the organ, and that's the Hauptwerk, that's the great division of the organ. And then, of course, the ones that just go straight across, they are here for the middle, and that's for the choir organ. And then deep down in there, you can't really see it on the picture itself. We tried this when we did the German version a minute or 2 ago. And underneath there are also the pedal connections, and it's quite difficult to see those, but there are only 30 of them, so yeah. Now, that's part 1 of it. So we could actually take the console apart so you can see how it's connected to the keys, but that's a bit of a faff, so we're not going to do that. But what I can do is open up the organ itself and show you what it looks like inside there. Let's do that. Here we are at the organ. Now, as you can see, it's not very far from the console. The console is there, and the pipes, or the prospect of the pipes, is just here, okay? So you can get up real close, you can touch the pipes, which I'm not going to, because people get annoyed with me when I start touching pipes. They say that the oils and fats in my fingers are going to attack the pipes. No, they're not, but never mind. And here, we can actually see the pipes really rather well. On the left side, we have 1/2 of the pedal principal 16 foot. Yeah, so all the way up to there, that's 16 feet. What's that? 5 and a bit meters. And on the other side, over on the right side, the same. It's chromatic, remember? There's the C side and there's the C sharp side. C side? Oh, I do like to be beside the C side. No, never mind. And then here in the middle, you can see the pipes are a bit darker. That's not something with the light. Those actually are a completely different material. Those pipes, that's the 4-foot principle of the choir organ. But the reason I'm here is this strange key that Gabriel gave me. And with that, I can open this door, and we can see where those wooden connections end up. And if you would care to join me up here, I'll show you this in a little more detail. So, remember the wooden struts we saw that came across from the console? Well, they end down there, way down in the floor, and there's a sort of a lever mechanism, if you like, that transfers that horizontal movement into this vertical movement. So here are the same number of wooden connections up to here, and then these vertical connections here are then, with another lever, as it were, transformed into another horizontal movement over to where the pipes are on the chests. Now, to get then to the individual pipes, those, obviously the pipes aren't this close together. These are individual notes, yeah? And obviously the individual pipes aren't that close together, so they have to be spaced out. So there are sort of rollers, if you like, with wooden connections on either end that then take that vertical motion up underneath the pipe, pull on that little valve and let the air into the pipe. So if you take that camera, we've switched the light on the camera so we can actually see in there. And if you go right up in there you go, you can see those sort of rollers, yeah? That's rather beautiful, actually, the way it's laid out. And if you look even higher, I don't know, can you see any pipes if you go all the way up? If you go all the way up, can you see any pipes? Can you see any pipes? Nope, the pipes are hidden above us, but basically those are the connections right up to the pipes in there. Now, we could wander into the organ and have a look at some other bits and pieces in there. We might do that in a minute, but we have some other things to show you in this organ. It's a rather special instrument, actually. We actually decided to have a wander into the organ before we started playing some tunes, and there are some rather curious things to see here, and one of them I've heard about, and I'm not sure we can find it, but we'll see. Look, organ pipes. Yeah, these pipes belong to the pedal division, and this is 1/2 of the pedal division. It's, I don't know, is this C sharp or C side? I think it's the C sharp side over here. And you can see the rather tall ones that go all the way up practically to the ceiling. That's the 16-foot Posaune. And here at the back we have the stopped bass pipes, the sub-bass, I think it's called. And so on and so on and so on. But if we dig deeper into the organ and climb a few ladders, we're going to find some more interesting curiosities. Come this way. When you're digging about inside an organ, and it's quite good this way because there's a lot of space in here, you will eventually come across a ladder. And when you come across a ladder, the most natural thing you do is climb it. And let's do that. Let's see what we find when we climb this ladder. To get some drama in our films, I've sent my wife up the ladder first so she can film me climbing up the ladder. And, well, because she's always wearing the most suitable shoes for this job, she decided to leave them down there for now. I don't know why she insists on wearing these high heel things, but yeah, she's climbed up, and now it's my turn to climb up. So, what have we got up here? So here up at the top of the organ, the top of our mystery ladder, we've discovered these chaps. The chamade pipes, the Spanish trumpets, if you like, the French chamade pipes. And remember, there was a video from a while back where I was in Kloster Marienstadt, the Abbey of Marienstadt here in Germany, and you could see the pipes directly above the head of the organist. They were right above my head, Spanish trumpets. And here, they're hidden inside the organ, but nonetheless, there they are, the horizontal fanfare trumpets, if you like, that shoot their sound straight out into the church. quite well hidden here, but they've got a rather punchy sound, which we're going to hear in just a minute or two. I don't know if you saw that in the last video. Beside the chamade pipes, there's this ladder. And being a sort of inquisitive person that I am, and not being terribly afraid of heights, I thought I might as well go up the ladder and have a look. And there's a very dark room up here, so I'm going to grab the camera and see what I can find in here. Now, this is something I've never seen in an organ before. And I think this is probably, some organists would dream about something like this, to have their own bed inside the organ. Now, I can't really show you this any better than this because I'm filming it myself, because I'm all the way, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm right at the top of the organ, basically right at the top of the church. And hidden up another ladder, the organist has installed this own little private bedroom. I always said organists were crazy people, and here's the proof. Back at the console, and in the 30-odd years I've been crawling around inside organs, I think that's the first time I've ever seen a bed inside an organ. So, yep, organists are crazy people, and we now have proof. So, back to the console, and I'm going to start showing you a few stops here, but before we do that, I want to introduce you to the wonderful world of hybrid organs. Now, everyone these days is talking about hybrid cars, but back in the 90s, Gabriel decided, let's have a hybrid organ. What does that mean? Well, most of the sounds of this organ are, of course, made by pipes, that's true, but there are some electronically created sounds in this organ as well, but not what you're thinking. Let's go and have a look. Back in the 90s, or maybe earlier, I don't know, there was a film, I think it was a German film, it was called The Earthquake, Das Erdbeben auf Deutsch, and they needed some rather fancy speakers to recreate the feeling of an earthquake. Now, why the feeling of an earthquake? Well, we're talking about subsonic sounds here, things going way down below 20 hertz. Yeah, so sounds you can basically only feel. The air is moving so slowly you can feel it. Yeah, and this is one of those speakers. And there are 3 of them here in the church, and they are responsible for 3 rather big bassy pedal effects on the organ. Now, that's not what you were thinking. You were probably thinking hybrid sounds are going to be things like xylophones and pianos, like we saw in Bonn recently. Nope. These are organ sounds created with these rather wonderful, incredibly solid loudspeakers. So we're going to have a look at some of the stops, like I told you, and the organ's sort of been played around with over the years, not just by the addition of electronic sounds, but it started out in the 1950s, and then it was added to in the 80s. It was sort of changed to a mechanical action in the 80s and 90s, I think, then. A couple of stops were added to it, the electronic stops were added to it, and after the church was refurbished, the organ was revoiced, as it were. And the organ builder firm that did that, firm Meyer, they were called, or they are called, they're still around, and the guy who did the voicing of the organ was actually Scottish. And he asked Gabriel, he said, would you like a Scottish organ? And whatever a Scottish organ is, I'm not really very sure, but that's apparently what we have here. We have a Scottish sounding organ. So there you go. Scottish organist, Scottish sounding organ in Germany. How international. We'll have a quick dig through some of the wonderful sounds we have on the organ. We've got 3 manuals. So the third manual is the swell, second manual is the choir, or the positive, and then the great, or Hauptwerk, here at the bottom. And there are 2 swellable divisions. We have the swell division, obviously, at the top, and also the choir organ is swellable. So we have these 2 swell pedals here. And what's rather cool about these pedals is they're also mechanical. So there's this rather large, huge, mechanical, heavy, weighted connection between the pedals and the swell box itself. You're actually really pushing the swell box open. And that makes these pedals very heavy. And I know there are some organists who don't like that. They like the swell pedals to be very light and easy to move. I actually think this is rather wonderful because it gives you proper control of how fast and how far you're opening the swell box. I like it, other people don't. Anyway, a quick run through some of the stops. We have the usual stringy celeste sound here in the swell. And of course the wonderful acoustic carrying it on for 7, 8, 9 seconds, rather wonderful. Each division has its own sort of 8, 4 and 2 principal division, which is rather cute. That was only the swell principles, yeah? So we've got the same thing here in the choir organ. I don't know if you can pick that up on the recorder, but it's a much more direct sound because the pipes are right in front of the organist's face. So that's a very, very, very direct sound. And then, of course, you have the main principal division on the Hauptwerk. Which of course has that big fat sound. Now, there are rather a lot of reed sounds in this organ, starting with some very French sounding reeds up in the swell. And if I close the swell box, we get that wonderful snarly effect that I love so much. In the choir organ, there's a lovely oboe, which arrived at the time where the Scottish guy was doing his voicing work, so theoretically it's a Scottish oboe. Which is a rather lovely solo stop on its own. Down in the great organ, of course, we have 16, 8 and 4 foot reeds, big fanfare sounds. And of course, when that's not enough, you've got your chamade trumpets, your fanfare trumpets, and they are very bombastic. For the clever organists amongst you, you would have thought there, hold on a minute, that sounds like there's a 16-foot chamade. Well, no, there isn't. There's only 8 and 4, but there's a rather clever trick here. You can couple them down an octave to make them sound fatter. If I take that away, then we do have chamade 8, chamade 4. And because they send their sound directly into the church, you really get the full effect of that acoustic. That is really rather amazing. Gabriel, can I come and play here regularly, please? Let's have a look at the pedal division. This is an organ of firsts. We just discovered the bed up there, but I think this is the only organ I've ever come across where there are more pedal stops than in any other division. What do I mean by that? Well, there are 17 stops here in the pedal. And if we take away the 2 chamade, because they're sort of floating, if we take them away, there are 15 stops in the pedal alone. Now that's more than any other division of this organ. Why on earth there are 15 pedal stops? Who knows? Why not? An organ can't be bassy enough. But here are those 15, well, that's not true. Here are 12 of those pedal stops, just the pipes. That's a pretty good sound, and it's so big we've actually set off the ambulances outside on the street. Could you hear that in the recording? I don't know. There are 3 pedal stops here. I've just mentioned it, pointing at the speakers there. Yeah? There are 3 electronic stops here on the organ. Now, obviously Gabriel didn't think the organ was fat enough in the bass end, so they added another 16-foot stop. It's a 16-foot violon, it's called, and it sounds, on its own, it sounds like this. Which is okay, yeah? It's got a big sound, but it does sound like an electronic sound on its own. But when you mix that with the other 16-foot stops, sounds absolutely fine. It's just got a nice big meaty sound to it. Now then there's a 32-foot stop, and this is when these earthquakey speakers come into play. Let me play the same thing again, but now with the 32-foot on. Suddenly the whole organ loft starts shaking. So it is just like an earthquake, just like the speakers promised, yeah? It's making our own little earthquake. Now, there's a 32-foot reed stop, an electronic 32-foot reed, and it has its very own speaker hidden in the organ. It would be too powerful to have it here on the organ loft here. It would be too powerful. So they've hidden it in the back. Here it is on its own. Sounds like a machine gun going crazy. Now, if I pop on full organ and get rid of the chamade, and now this is full organ coupled down to pedals here, okay? And it's the most amazingly big fat effect. Listen to this. Now, if you didn't know any better, you would think this was all pipe work here. But yeah, the addition of those 3 electronic stops has really made something out of this organ. Quite wonderful. And don't forget, the organ itself is good, but add the room, add the size of the church, and it's a rather special instrument. Time to play a piece of music. Okay, so I'm going to finish up with a piece of music, and I'm actually going to do something that I haven't done yet at this organ, because we haven't really had much time here. When we arrived at the church tonight, there was a service taking place. And then the cleaners came in and sort of spent an hour cleaning. And during that time, I would have normally sat at the organ and sort of, worked out what the organ can do, tried through all the stops, all that sort of thing. And I didn't have that time today. And because we need to get home at some point, I didn't do what I normally do. Now, what I normally do is I start just playing around with the organ. I start playing around with the stops, start with some very soft stops, and then build the organ up gradually. So, I know what the organ sounds like. I know what I can do with the organ. I know what the organ can do, blah, blah, blah. And like I said, I didn't get the chance to do that today. So the piece we're going to play at the end of today's video is actually going to be me doing that, okay? Now, what I've done, without playing a single note, I've set the sequencer on the organ. I don't know if you can see all the stops moving there. I've set up the organ as I think I would normally set it up. So starting off with some very soft, stringy sounds, building up to full organ, and then back down again. And it's a sort of very British way of doing things when you don't know an organ. You just start waffling around in a key. I'm going to probably play an E flat because I love E flat. And I'll start waffling around in the organ, build it up to full organ, take it back down again. And that's sort of my procedure to get to know an organ. And that's what we're going to do today. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. I hope it was interesting today. It's been great being here. It's great being back out and about at a new organ again. And thanks to your support with things like Patreon and Steady and PayPal, which you'll find down there, we're able to do this, yeah? Because, we've got normal jobs as well, and these are things we have to do in our spare time. And it's quite difficult finding the time and resources to travel around the country and play and record these organs. So thank you for helping and assisting. You are making this possible. And a big thanks, of course, to Gabriel Dessauer, the organist here. There's also a link to him and his activities here. Gabriel is a rather wonderful concert organist himself, and he plays all over the world. He's been in America a few times as well, and he's also one of these organists who likes playing the sort of lighter side of music. He doesn't just play the heavy stuff, he plays some light stuff too, which makes him a good chap in my book. So thank you very much to Gabriel for letting me come and sit and play at the organ for a few hours tonight. I hope I'll be back here to play again sometime soon. Let's close up with that piece of music, like I said. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again next week with more new stuff about organs. So, see you next time. Bye-bye.